Greetings YouTube, it's the Brain Damage Gamer here, and I have another BDG news update for you. We're doing this on Thursday, September 22nd, and I have a couple of different things I want to cover. Some of these are games I've actually covered myself, so it should be interesting. First thing we have is a game I'm getting ready to release a review on. This is Everspace. This is basically a kind of hybrid of Elite Dangerous and Faster Than Light FTL. Where it has that kind of rogue element where you lose your progress if you die, but you get to upgrade your gear. Very similar to Elite Dangerous. If you've been upgrading, you have your stuff, you have your ship. You basically respawn with your ship and then continue to buy upgrades and send those upgrades into future ships, basically. It's funny, when you even start the game, they show your ship and then like a whole row of ships behind it that are the exact same ship. So as you're upgrading, they basically upgrade the whole line as opposed to just your one specific ship. It's kind of an interesting idea. The game itself has been a bit of a surprise hit. It's actually popped into Steam's top 10 games for at least a little bit. Looks like it's going to have a little bit of staying power. It is in early access. The interesting part, though, is that this is, while technically an early access game for them, the team who created the game, Rockfish Games, is actually a different game developer who's basically done a little bit of rebranding and rebuilt their team. They used to work for Deep Silver under the name of Fish Labs Entertainment, and they have since rebranded, become a different group. Even on their page, though, if you go to the Everspace homepage and go to the About section, they specifically call out to this fact. They say that Rockfish Games was founded by, and they give the names of the developers, who previously founded and ran Fish Labs Entertainment for nearly 10 years. Pretty much the whole team who created Galaxy on Fire, the original games that they worked on, series has joined us at our new studio, and we're super happy to have the band back together. And they got a little yeah in there. But the Galaxy on Fire games I did enjoy. They were primarily mobile games. They did have a port version that did exist. I didn't really care for that as much on Steam, but Everspace has definitely taken this idea in a new direction, so I'm enjoying it so far. But you'll have to watch that review if you want to get the full details, obviously. In more Steam-related news, Valve has changed their review system again. The first change that they'd initially done was to basically make it so that it automatically removed keys that had been activated from the review section. They were still there, but you had to manually go click on show everything in order to see all of the reviews across the board. The idea behind it was pretty common knowledge as being a good idea, because developers were handing out keys and expecting good reviews back. This isn't the first kind of shady thing that developers have been caught in. And I'm not talking about, just indie devs. This is also AAA studios that had been accused of doing this. Basically padding in reviews to make a game look better than it actually was. The change that they've made now is to default automatically to show all reviews, but they still do split them now. So you do have those tiers still where it's been split up into the different sections saying this is all reviews, this is reviews that are just people who bought the game, and then here's the people who activated keys. Now, the catch-22 of all this is that they have caught in this wave the people who legitimately went and bought the game at like a retail, or an example I use frequently, Humble Bundle, because I like giving to charity whenever I'm buying games sometimes, depending on what the game is and which charity it is that they're doing. I might go and buy it there instead of buying it on Steam, even if it's the same price. But if I do that, it's going to give me a key for Steam, which means that that key is going to put me in a different review bracket than if I buy it just naturally on Steam itself through the marketplace. And some of the developers are appeased by this, and I can understand why, but at the same time, I am glad that that option has been split into there. So if I go to a game and it's only got 100 reviews, and then I click on just reviews for people that bought it in Steam, if it's only got 5 reviews from people that bought it in Steam, your developer may have handed out 95 keys. Maybe people bought from other places, maybe the developer handed out, who knows. But if those 5 reviews are negative, and everything else is positive, let's do some math here, people. The Division, the Ubisoft MMO shooter hybrid, whatever the heck they tried to make it into there with the last patch of 1.3, is undergoing significant changes yet again. This is typical for most MMOs. Whenever you have significant changes, you'll see sweeping broad adjustments to settings and stats and things like that. This one looks interesting, though, because they specifically call it out saying that the 1.4 patch, which originally was going to include DLC type content, has been split. We now have the performance section of it, and then we're going to have the DLC later on in the year, which I'm alright with. I'd rather them focus on the performance first. And I imagine a lot of people that are still playing the game would hope that they would do the same as well. I do pop back in on the game occasionally and check it. My biggest complaint, a lot of people have heard me say it, the light machine guns are just weak. They have made it so that an assault rifle typically is more damage inducing than the light machine guns. That's something they're talking about changing. Amongst other things that they're changing, they're adjusting stats. So a large portion of the stats are no longer going to be as spiked and able to just shoot off into random directions where people have gone to the trouble of, oh, you know what? I'm going to build all of my gear so that I'm just doing damage. And then I'll also make sure I get a high enough armor rating that I'll basically be almost impossible to kill for anyone that doesn't have a high damage spike as well. Well, what they've done is they've changed it so as you slowly grow towards 30, your firearms, electronics, and stamina all slowly grow on their own as well, and that's reflective through the gear stats. Now, one of the things to keep in mind with this is that by doing this, their upcoming patch is going to make it so that every piece of gear has all three stats, with one stat slightly higher than the others. And they've also done a lot of re-rolling for a lot of the modifications. Weapons mods can no longer have 2 and 3 high-end stat boosts. They'll have typically one and then one bunch of little modification adjustments that'll happen on different things. So you won't be able to get a magazine that, doubles your magazine size and then also doubles your damage. It's not going to be like that anymore. It's going to be, all right, this magazine doubles your magazine size, and then maybe it does a little damage boost, a little accuracy boost, little things like that. Little minor adjustments. They're trying to keep from having these just crazily skewed gear scores everywhere, because players weren't able to play properly if one person had managed to get just all those right stats in all the right areas. They just steamroll through everything and ruin the experience for a lot of other people in the process. One of the other things that they've done is they're significantly reducing enemy health, apparently. There's been a lot of speculation, and they haven't really done much to confirm or deny it, but they are significantly reworking enemy health, so that way, if you played the game and you played levels 1 through 29, most enemies went down pretty quickly. Once you hit level 30, man, you dump 60 rounds into one target before that one target would finally fall over. They're trying to eliminate that because they said it didn't feel like a shooter anymore, and that was the big complaint people had, is that it wasn't a shooter, despite being a Tom Clancy game. With that reduction in enemy health, they're also increasing a large amount of the weapons damage or weapons adjustments. We'll go ahead and go to some direct quotes here. They've changed the damage on various weapons and what they do for their current roles. In the current game, SMGs do higher damage than assault rifles. That's not intended to be that way. It's just something that's happened because of how they're doing the damage currently. SMGs are probably getting a damage nerf based upon what we're seeing here. Many light machine guns, on the other hand, then this is one of the sections that made me a little happy inside, are getting a significant buff. And they'll get closer damage to the assault rifles, which is what they should be. Because if you look, and I'll throw up a graphic right here, this is a 5.56 bullet fired by a M16, an M4, whatever variant you have of that particular weapon. This is a 5.56 bullet fired by a M249. You see that there's no difference? It's the same bullet, because it's the exact same round. The only difference is the 249, you can belt feed it. They also have the ability to put magazines in those. Common fact a lot of people don't know, that you can emergency load a 249 with an M16 or M4 magazine. You can put that into the weapon. It'll fire those 30 rounds faster than you've ever seen, though. But a lot of times it damages the magazine in the process because of how quickly it's stripping through that. That said, the bullets do the same damage. The difference is the 249's heavier. It's harder to lug around because of all the extra ammo and how heavy everything is in general. But it should do the same damage when the bullet hits a target. If you shoot one round out of each, it's going to do the same damage. In the Division, that wasn't how it was in the past. They've changed that as of the 1.4 patch. where they want the assault rifles and the light machine guns to do the same base damage, and it's the other stats that are going to get them modified, which I'm alright with. The one thing I've always said, and I've always wondered why they didn't do it, in this game, it shouldn't be about how much damage the weapon's doing when it comes to the light machine guns. What it should be about is how heavy the crap is. Why not make the players move a little bit slower when they're using those weapons? That's what I've always said. Keep the damage the exact same as their assault rifle counterparts. Just slow down the player while using it, because it's a more realistic scenario. And it's what you typically have to do. When there's a squad moving around, they move at the speed of the light machine gunner, because that's the person carrying the most stuff. One of the other things that they are doing as well with the Division is they're going to be removing scavenging just completely, because they found that what was happening is people would have really high scavenging gear sets. They go to fight a boss and just beat the boss almost to death, then hurry up and change into their scavenging gear, kill the boss, and get the high-end items that they had wanted. That was never the intention of how scavenging was supposed to work. They knew scavenging was broken in a lot of ways because it didn't function properly sometimes, where you could have the highest scavenging in your group and everyone else but you would start picking up rares constantly. You wouldn't get any of the high-end items. You'd be getting, base level gear, and you have the highest score. It'd be like, oh, sorry, it's randomized. But the scavenging was supposed to help that. Apparently, Ubisoft has just said, you know what? We're done with it. Just remove the whole thing. It doesn't work as intended. Which should be interesting, because I wonder what they're going to do in its place. Because randomized drops is kind of a big pull for games like this, where it's the constant gear shuffle, the constant stat comparison. I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the future in order to adjust that. Where would you like to see them go with that? And leave a comment down below if you do play the Division and are interested in these changes. What do you think of them? Are you happy about them? Are you upset with them? What do you think this is going to do to your overall gameplay when it comes to playing the Division? Let me know down below. And finally, we do have a little bit of sad news. Unfortunately, Pokemon Uranium, the fan-based project that had been in production for over 9 years, has been completely shut down. The people behind it had intended to continue some form of support, basically issuing patches in the background quietly without actually having the website up anymore and having any more of the active content being generated on their website. It looks like Nintendo has issued a strong enough cease and desist to completely stop that production. So there will be no more patches beyond the initial one that had been released. If you have not played Pokemon Uranium, it is a really good fan game. In all honesty, I personally encourage them to change the name of the game and maybe change some of the wording, and they could probably get away with leaving the game as is, because outside of a few art type assets that they could also make minor modifications on, you could easily make this into a completely different game and not have Nintendo be able to come after you. It's just a thought, but I'm kind of wondering if they're not just done with Nintendo in general now after this last wave of takedowns that they and other fan projects have received this year. Nintendo has been really on it. And I typically do my best to avoid anything Nintendo related on my channel for that specific reason, because Nintendo will yank you down quickly. Even with this new segment, I am not going to use any tags indicating that it has anything to do with Nintendo, because they will come and say, oh, cease and desist, sorry, take your video down, here's a copyright strike. That's just the way they work. Well, alright, that is everything I have for today. I would like to thank everyone for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to hit like. Feel free to go ahead and leave some comments down below about some of the topics I've gone over. If you have anything interesting that you've heard or seen that you'd like me to cover at some point in time, feel free to drop that in there. Can't promise I'll go over it, but I'll definitely read the comment. But as always, I am the Brain Damage Gamer, and I would like to thank you again for watching, and game on.